Hi everyone, this is Anjali. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to do what are lists in Python. In the last video we saw what are tuples in Python, how do you create it, how do you manipulate it. But now we are going to see what are lists. So the first thing which is similar in them is that they are a collection of heterogeneous values. That means tuple is a comma separated list of values which could be of any data type. Similar way, list is also a kind of list of values, that is comma separated values, but given in square brackets. But how does it make a difference? Like if I have to create a tuple, I'll be writing it this way. So this is a tuple, but if I take the same set of values within square brackets instead of round brackets, it is termed as a list. Okay, so when it is in round brackets, it's tuple. When it is in square brackets, it's a list. But then what's the difference? The difference is that a tuple is an immutable data structure, whereas a list is a mutable data structure. Okay, so this is the major difference between tuple and list. I told you about this immutable thing. That is, you can fetch the elements like this. A0 will give you the first value. Similar way, you can fetch from the list. B0 will give you the first value. If I want to get the third value, I'll be writing A2, that gives me 30. If I write B2, that also gives me that element. Fine, I can fetch. But when it comes to modifying the value, when you try to write A2 is equal to 34, you get an error over here. So it shows you an error saying that assignment is not possible with the tuples. So object does not support item assignment. Fine. So we are getting such an error when we try to assign something in a tuple. But if you try to do this in a list, then there is no problem. You print B and the value is modified. So this is the difference between mutable and immutable. So immutable means non-modifiable, which cannot be modified. So once a memory is allocated, once you have created something, you cannot modify the value in that. Whereas in case of a list, I can modify the value. So once a memory is allocated, value is stored, I can modify it anytime I want as I need. So that is the major difference between a list and a, okay. Now, whatever things you did with list, whatever operations we saw with list, that is, we have indexing, we have negative indexing, then we did a few methods. All that is possible with your list also. Okay, so we can do all that with list. For example, if I want to concatenate two lists, so I can do that. I can write 10, 30 plus 12, 18. So it will combine. If you have 10, 30 multiplied by 4, so it will replicate, right? So that all is possible over here also. For creating a tuple with a single element, you had to write a number with a comma after that. But in case of list, it's not like that. If you want to make an element with, you want to make a list with a single element, so you don't need to give a comma. I can simply write h is equal to 30 and it will still be considered as a list. For example, if you would have written j is equal to 30 and I have a command in Python called type. So if I write type h, it is showing me that h is a list. There was a single element. But if you do the same thing with j, the answer would be it's an integer. If you want it to be a list, you have to write like this. Now if I see the type, it will show me that it is a tuple because I have a comma after that. So for single element tuple, you have to give a comma, but for a single element list, nothing like that is required. Okay. So these are the basic things. That is how you create a list. Now, we have some predefined functions which can be used both on list and tuples. For example, I want to find the length. So if I write length A, it's giving me 4. The same thing works with your list also. Fine. So all these functions which are just getting something, getting some result, you can use them both on list as well as tuple. But if you get a function which can modify it, that is not possible to be used on a tuple. That is possible only on list. Okay. So one function is len. Len will tell you the number of elements. Another is if I have to count like how many times a value appears in a list or a tuple. So if I write a dot count 10, so 10 comes once, right? If it would have been repeated, for example, if I take a list where I take 10, 20, 10, 24, 10, 20, 10, 34, 20, 80, something like this. And then if you find out the length of D, you get number of elements are 10. If you write D dot count, D dot count 20, so 20 comes for 3 times. If I write D dot count 10, it comes for 4 times. If I write D dot count 50, it's not there, so it gives you 0 because it does not come in the list. So count tells you how many times it appears, okay? But if you want to know the position, where does it appear? For that, there is a function called index. I can write d dot index 20. So it will give us the first occurrence of that value. So 20 occurs at index 1 for the first time. That's why I'm getting 1. So it will always give you the first position, okay? So we got count, we got length, we got index. Then you have a function called sorted. If you write sorted D, so it will give you the list in sorted order. So this works on tuple as well. So it does not modify your list. Your list is still the same. Original list is still the same. There is no change. But when you write sorted D, it gives you the list of sorted numbers. Sorted means numbers in increasing order. I can also have it in decreasing order. For that, I need to write sorted D comma reverse is equal to true. So if you write reverse is equal to true, it comes in decreasing order. So these are some of the methods which can be used on both tuples as well as list. But now we have certain methods which can work only on list and they don't work in tuples. For example, I have a method named append. Okay, so D is my list. I'm having these numbers. I want to add an element at the end of this list. So I write D dot append 60. I press enter. If I see D now, so you can see we have 60 as the last element in the list. So whatever value you give, that is added at the end of the list with the help of append. If you don't want to add at the end, you want to add at any given position, you want to insert a number at any given position. So you have to give that position. For example, I want to add a number where 24 is. So it's at 3. So I'm going to give 3 and I want to add 40 here. So what happens is 40 will be inserted at index 3 and that 24 will be shifted ahead. So 24 will move on to position 4 and then so on. Rest of the elements will be shifted ahead. So you can see 40 is inserted at position 3. So if I want to insert at the very first position, even that is possible. You just need to give 0 over there. So if I give 0, the element will be inserted at position 0. So that's how we can add a number at the end or at any given position. So if you have to add at the end, we will be writing append. But if I have to put it at any given position, I will be using insert for that. So this is about insertion. Now comes deletion. If you have to delete from the list, if I have to delete the element from the list, how do I do it? So there are two functions for this. One is pop. I write d.pop. And if you just leave pop with empty brackets, it will delete the last element of the list. So you can see 60 from the list is removed. So if I write it again, it will delete 80. If I show D, so you can see 60 and 80 are gone. Now this pop can also receive a position. For example, I want to delete the second 10, which is at position 3. So I write d dot pop 3 and I show it now. So the 10 between 20 and 40 is gone. Now after 20, we directly have 40. We don't have that 10 in between. So that is gone, right? So we have 55, 10, 20, 40, 24, and likewise. So we have it this way. So we can use pop to delete from a specific position. Okay, so pop, if we don't give the position, it deletes the element from the end of the list. So if you have not mentioned any position, it deletes the element from the end of the list. If you mention the position, then it will delete from that specific position. And obviously, if you write something, if you write some position which is not there in the list, for example, there is no element at position 12 in the list, so it will generate the error that says pop index out of range. So it's quite obvious that whatever position we are giving, that must be present in the list. If it is not present in the list, we can't delete from there, right? So that's pop. Then we have one more method using which you can remove, and that method is named as remove. So d dot remove, it cannot be left blank. You cannot leave the brackets blank. You have to pass the value which you want to delete. For example, if I pass 20, so it will delete 20 from my list. But which 20 will be deleted? The very first occurrence it will get, like 55, 10, 20. So it has removed the first 20, but the other two 20s are still there in the list. So at a time, it deletes only one value, and that too, whichever comes first. So at a time, only one deletion is done, and that too is done from the very first occurrence. Okay, so it's deleted 20 from there. So we are left with 55, 10, 40, 24, 10, 20, whatever numbers are left. So that's remove. Okay, that's the purpose of remove. Again, if you are removing something which is not there in the list, then obviously I'm going to get error for that because that value is not there. So how can you delete? Okay. We also use a keyword del for deletion. Like if I want to delete the first element, which is 55, I can write del d0. And if you see, there is no 55 here. So del is not a function. It's a keyword. So del is a keyword. I can write del, name of the list, and just give the index which you want to remove. If you want to remove everything from the list, right? I have B as a list. So B is also a list. I write B dot clear. What do I write? B dot clear. So when I write clear, it will simply clear the list. That means your list is going to be blank. Okay. Now there is nothing left in the list. So B dot clear is going to clear the list altogether. I don't have any single element left in my list, right? So that's how you can clear a list. Okay. So clear is there, remove, pop, del, all these are for deletions. Now for insertion, there is one more method, and that is extend. Now I'll show you one thing. If you look at this list D, it's this way. Now I have, let's say, another list which I want to add after this. So I write here D dot append, and in square brackets, I write 30, comma 50, comma 70, like this. So what I wanted was that I already have 8 elements in my list, and these 3 should be added so that I get 11 elements in the list. But actually, it's not happening that way. If you look at the length of D, it's not 11, it's 8. Or it was 8 was already there, so it's 9. Because that 30, 50, 70, they're not added separately. They're added as a single value. Here we can also call it nesting of list because there is a list inside another list. Okay. So there's a list inside another list. That is called nesting of list. So we have it this way. So if I want to fetch the values, if I write D7, I get 20. If I write D9, I get the whole thing. Okay, 9 elements are there. If I write D8, so I get this whole thing. If I want to get values out of this, so I have to give 2 indices. First, I have to write D8 to fetch that list, and then I have to give another index to fetch values from that. Right? So that's why it's called nested list. But I didn't want it to happen this way. I didn't want it to be inserted this way. So let me delete it again. Now this is your D. Now I'm going to change my command. I'm not going to use append. I am going to use extend. Okay, so I'm going to use extend. Now you look at your list and now you get the length. So now it's not added as a single element, rather it is added individual elements, right? So since it's added as individual elements, you have 11 elements in the list. So that's the difference between append and extend, which is asked number of times in the exam. So you must be very clear that how your append and extend are different. Okay. Last function for now is sort. Now we saw sorted, right? This is your list. If you write sorted in brackets D, so you see the sorted list, but the list is not modified. It is still the same. You want the list to be modified. You want the changes to be done in the list itself. Then you're not going to use sorted. Then you're going to use sort. I'm going to write D dot sort. So when I write D dot sort, and now I see D, so my list is modified. It is modified, it's changed permanently. Now I have these sorted values in my list. If I wanted to be sorted on decreasing order, so I'll write d dot sort, and in brackets we can still write reverse is equal to true and press enter. You show D, it's in reverse order. So that's how the sort method works. Again, this is a very important question which can be asked: what is the difference between sort and sorted? So sorted can be used both on tuples and list because it does not modify, it only shows you the thing after sorting, but original list or tuple cannot be modified. Sort works only on list because it needs to modify the original list. So it is mutable. So sort works only on list data structure. Okay. Now, after understanding the basic purpose of list, tuple, and the operations we are performing on it, the next topic is very interesting, that is slicing. Now, slicing can be done on a list, on a tuple, or even on a string. So, slicing is like fetching part of your list, tuple, or a string. So, that's very interesting also, and very useful, and very much repeated questions you get based on slicing in the exam. So, definitely something, one or the something will be asked. Some output question will be using slicing in your exams. So we will be doing slicing in the next video. Till then, you practice these commands and make sure you understand and remember each of these functions. So if you found the video useful, hit the like button, share the video with everyone who is interested learning Python, and subscribe the channel. Bye for now. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.